All right, think about this for a second. There's something out there that isn't technically alive, but it can definitely kill you. It has no brain, yet it can outsmart our own immune systems. So what are these things? Today, we're going to try and crack the code on one of nature's biggest and most fascinating puzzles, the virus. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the biggest question of all, right? This is the one that has stumped scientists for like a century. It's what puts these things in such a weird, fascinating gray area of biology. You'd think it would be a simple yes or no question, but when it comes to viruses, no, the answer is just not that simple. They they don't play by the normal rules of life. And this really gets to the heart of their split personality. I mean, on one side, you've got all these classic signs of life. They have genetic blueprints, they can evolve, and they do it at these terrifying speeds. But on the other hand, they're basically just inert, lifeless particles. You can literally crystallize them just like a grain of salt. So they exist on this razor's edge, somewhere between chemistry and actual life itself. Okay, so if they're not really alive, then what in the world are these little biological paradoxes made of? Let's, pop the hood and see what makes these invaders tick. First off, their size is just mind-bogglingly small. To give you some perspective, imagine one of your own cells is the size of a football stadium. A virus? It'd be the football itself, yeah. That's why you need an incredibly powerful electron microscope just to even get a glimpse of one. So at the very heart of the virus is its genetic material, and wrapped around that is something called the capsid. Just think of it like a microscopic suit of armor, a little protein shell built for one single purpose: protecting its precious cargo. So here's the thing you gotta understand. A virus is brutally efficient. Its biology stripped down to the absolute bare minimum. All it has is its genetic blueprints, that protective protein coat, the capsid, and these attachment spikes. And these spikes are like tiny precision-engineered keys made to pick the lock on a very, very specific type of cell. And those keys? Well, that's where the real action starts. See, when a virus finds its target, it doesn't just infect it. No, it launches a complete, hostile takeover of the entire cell. This really sums up the whole strategy perfectly. A virus is the ultimate parasite. It's got the blueprints to make thousands of copies of itself, right? But it brings nothing to the party. Zero tools, zero materials, zero energy. To get anything done, it has to hijack a fully equipped factory, which is, of course, a living cell. And this is exactly how that takeover goes down. It's kind of like a corporate raider storming a factory. First, it latches onto the outside wall. Then it injects its own ruthless CEO, that's its genetic code. This new boss immediately fires everyone and completely retools the assembly line to make only one thing: more corporate raiders. And once the factory is stuffed full, they literally blow the doors off, releasing this brand new army to go and take over all the other factories in the neighborhood. But not all viruses are the same, not by a long shot. The word virus actually covers this huge, diverse kingdom of agents, and each one has its own playbook. So how do scientists even begin to make sense of this massive, complicated family tree? Well, it's a lot like how we classify animals, right? Based on whether they have fur or feathers or scales. Scientists do the same thing with viruses. They profile them based on their shape, their genetic material, and, maybe most importantly, who they like to infect. The biggest difference between them comes down to their genetic code. You've got DNA viruses like herpes, which use that stable double-stranded DNA for their blueprints. And then you have RNA viruses, think influenza or rabies, which use a much more fragile single-stranded RNA. And that one little difference completely changes the game. It affects how they copy themselves, how they mutate, and how they evolve. Another way to classify them is just by looking at what they infect. And let me tell you, viruses can be super picky eaters. Some only go after animals, others are strictly for plants. And then you have these fascinating ones called bacteriophages. These are viruses that spend their entire existence hunting and destroying bacteria. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so we've got a handle on what they are and how they work. But what's their actual impact on the world? This is where it gets really interesting, because they have this complicated double life as both a terrible enemy and a surprisingly useful friend. Let's start with the dark side, the one we all know. Viruses are pretty much the villains behind some of humanity's worst plagues. We're talking everything from the ancient scourge of smallpox way back when to modern nightmares like Ebola. They're these invisible enemies that have the power to bring entire civilizations to a grinding halt. But, and this is a huge but, here's the twist.
we've actually gotten pretty good at taming these tiny hijackers. We've figured out how to turn them into our allies. We're now using them like microscopic surgeons to fix broken genes, or like tiny trained assassins to hunt down and kill cancer cells. We're even using them as building blocks for futuristic nanotechnology. It's amazing.
And get this, their impact goes way beyond just our bodies. It affects the entire planet. Did you know that every single spoonful of ocean water has about 1 million viruses in it? And they're waging this constant war on marine microbes? And that war has this unbelievable effect on our climate. It stops 3 gigatons of carbon from getting into the atmosphere every year. To put that in perspective, that's like taking every car in the whole world off the road. Just wow. So, after all this, what's the verdict? Are they villains? Are they tools? Or are they something else? Maybe the best way to think about them is as this ultimate force of evolution, this constant, relentless source of both chaos and creation that has been shaping life on Earth for billions of years. They're not just some small part of our story. In a lot of ways, they're the ones writing it.